No problem.
Yep. Recording has started.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Here we go. All right. So,
wait, Sherry, can you click on continue so we can see the slides?
Oh, you click on continue.
Continue what?
On our, we have a.
I think I just clicked on mine.
Oh, you can't. Okay, there you go. You can do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So everybody can see it. We're all good.
I'm good. Everybody good? Okay.
Okay. So while I've been a stay-at-home parent, I have kept up with employment law, things happening in the real world, all around me, whether it be union, non-union, anything that affects the workplace really interests me. I am not a lawyer, and I will say that a number of times, but employment law, I'm very passionate about. I just absolutely love it. I know laws in general are kind of boring, and sometimes it bores me, but it's really fascinating to read about the history to where we've come up to this point, and understand the reasoning behind laws. And then just understanding the process, how a law or how a bill becomes a law and how it gets there. So with everything going on with COVID and the vaccination, I started to do a lot of research to find out what was okay, because I will be an employee at a company, and I want to equip myself to understand what my rights are as an employee. But honestly, with everything going on, it's kind of crazy. I want to know what is legal and what's okay, because not everything you hear in the media is acceptable. And you might hear a lot of things from the Department of Labor. They might say a lot of things. We hear things from the CDC. And so it was really good for me to spend this time to research this topic so that I could equip myself. But my hope is to educate and answer any questions that you guys have. Just because you hear something on the news and an agency says something, it doesn't mean that they have authority over the law in the workplace. So I think that it's important to have a good, healthy attitude to question things, just in general. Okay. So I have to give a shout out to my husband. I don't know if you guys saw my headshots. My husband is a photographer. He does headshots, he does weddings, he does, he'll do anything basically, but this is one of his landscape photos. And this is at Ruby Beach in Washington. He also did my headshots. He is a fantastic photographer, and we do come up to Washington. He works with a company, he works with Customized Tours and does some of their photography. So if you need a photographer, I highly recommend my husband. This is his website below at the bottom. He is absolutely fantastic. So had to give a plug there.
Good.
So before I present, like I said, I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. Please consult legal counsel for covered legal opinion. My sources that all of my presentation is based on, I got it from the Equal Opportunity Commission website, which I can give you guys my sources. I would really appreciate if you'd like to go and research this stuff yourself. In fact, the EEOC's website has a fantastic, I printed it all out because I really want to digest it and read it, not in front of a computer, but they have a question and answer on basically any COVID topic, whether it's testing, whether it's vaccinations, whether it's questions about pre-employment with a candidate. They basically have everything. If you need to go there, I can send you guys my presentation and my sources. And then I also, some of my research was also done through the Society of Human Resource Management, their website. They are another great resource. The laws that I'm going to focus on today are federal employment laws, not specific state and local laws. But I do highly encourage you to find out, if you don't know already, what those are and how they apply to you, your state and local laws. Federal applies to everybody. And then from then on, each state can create their laws that are more strict when it comes to federal laws. So they can build on top of that for reporting and so on. So my role as an HR person in the workplace, just based on my experience and my education, is to not only represent the employer, but to also balance and represent the employee. And even though I would work for the employer, I just want you guys to understand where I'm coming from when I talk. I'm very passionate about employee advocacy and for employees standing up for themselves. But I also think that human resources should come alongside employees and help them. But it is a balancing act. So when I did work, I'm going to present to you like I would a manager. I would work with managers. I would equip, educate, and guide them. But then I would leave the decisions up to them. And this is really, I'm not going to share my personal point of view in this. I'm just going to give you all the tools that I think that you would need to make decisions regarding this topic. And then you guys can decide and make the best decisions for your business or your employees, or if you're an employee, then you, with your employer, bringing this information to your employer. Does anybody have any questions?
No, we're good. This is
okay.
Great.
Okay, great. So some assumptions that I'm coming in with. Because of all this COVID stuff, I think there is a high propensity for fear, and people get really scared. People are walking around with a lot of fear. I can see it in people's faces. I am a people person, and I will talk to people in the grocery store, and people are terrified. So if people are terrified in the grocery store, I can't imagine what it's like with work, which is something that they value and they hold dear. It's their livelihood. So considering all of this, I'm trying to keep a level perspective. And I'm coming from a place where this is not the first time in our history where we've had something disastrous. Okay, there was the Spanish flu. We have illnesses that come along. And I know that this COVID is a lot more serious than some of these other ones, but in a continuum, employment laws have been around longer than COVID, and they will continue to be around longer. So the and it's possible that employment environments change, but the whole point of the employment law is to ground us and guide us through difficult times like this, and give us like a bumper on each side of us. And laws, in my opinion, should be a lens in which we handle or approach our current circumstances, which can change, and not the other way around. As crazy as COVID is, Our circumstances should not dictate how we handle the law. The other thing is that laws can change, and they might, especially with COVID. It's possible, but it's difficult to pass laws for a reason. I know a lot about the process to pass a law, not only because I've been educated on it, but personally, I've sought out information on how it works. And our framers made it difficult because it shouldn't be easy. But we have the laws that we do for a reason, and they're very important. There are potential new laws that can come out of this and amendments from COVID. I'm kind of like looking down the pike and thinking, my gosh, this could definitely, especially with the vaccine, whether an employer decides to go mandatory or optional, I can definitely see a couple of new laws coming out of this, but a lot of this has to do with government agencies. So the important government agencies to watch out for that actually do matter. I know the CDC is giving guidance, but all my sources that when I did my research, which all my research has been based off of lawyers, employment lawyers, and they are saying that the CDC is just guidance. It is not the rule of law. So the government agencies that actually do matter for the workplace and that we should take more seriously is OSHA, and they have not, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, they have not come out and said anything yet on guidance about COVID, especially about vaccinations. Yes.
Morgan, does OSHA apply to colleges as well? Or are they just only on employers?
You know what? I don't know, but I do have a thing on OSHA. I think it's businesses with 11 employees or more.
Oh, well then colleges would, okay.
So OSHA, we'll get to that, but OSHA, it has more to do with reporting. So if a business is 11 employees or more, there's different reporting requirements. And with OSHA, it's if you have 250 employees, there's like more strict reporting requirements, especially if it's like mining or construction. But I do think that just basically businesses with 11 employees or more are covered by OSHA, generally speaking, for like, illness, reporting illness and reporting injury, just basic. Mm-hmm. So OSHA hasn't come out and said anything yet that's radical in the employment environment. And then the other really important one is the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And they have come out with a number of guidances. Like I said earlier, they have a wonderful page on how to maneuver COVID. They have this entire page with questions and then the answer, and the answer has the law inside of it. And it's very clear. So these are the two agencies I would highly encourage you to keep tabs on, not necessarily the CDC. And then lastly, I really think that the Supreme Court will get involved. I think that's what we can safely say, because as long as we're imperfect people and we are all different, we're going to have different priorities. And so not everybody is going to take the vaccine. Not everybody has the same opinion on testing. Not everybody feels that wearing a mask is important. So it's just different. And so I think that we should watch out for the Supreme Court to get involved, because I'm already hearing about employees getting fired from their jobs because they didn't get the vaccine, which, you know, is here nor there. Honestly, it has a lot to do with a certain state and their laws too, unfortunately, which is political sometimes. But please watch out for Supreme Court involvement, because case law determines our employment laws as well. So given our COVID environment, our employment environment, these are the questions that employees have.
Morgan, you've got another 6 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Sure. Testing, who this affects, how and when, a mask policy, how and who this affects. Assuming that most of us are virtual, how are we going to return to work? And who does this apply to? A vaccination policy, mandatory or optional, and who and how this affects. And then interview questions for potential employees, conditions of employment. These are all things that I hear people talking about. And frankly, I have the same questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through very quickly some of these laws. These are the laws, and I know this is a heavy page, but I did it this way so that I could send it out to you guys and you could reference it. And you can always double check my sources, but these are the laws that pertain to a lot of the COVID questions that I had in the previous slide. So like I said earlier, the Equal Opportunity Commission, they enforce workplace anti-discrimination laws. And so under these specific laws, we're going to see that all employees, for the most part, I think the only exceptions would be like a sole proprietorship, which is very, very small. I don't think they're covered under some of these, which seems crazy, but it's true. These laws protect employees from what we're going to find are disability protections and religious protections, and then possible age and any other protected class, which is, let's see here, under the Civil Rights Act. The protected classes are race, color, national origin, religion, sex, including pregnancy. And then I do have another page. We also have the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. So I just want to highlight this really quick. This law protects employees from information that might come out of a question about a vaccine. So if somebody has a disability or they have a genetic disorder, and that's the reason why they cannot get a vaccine, the vaccine, or that's why they don't want it. We have to be very careful about the questions that we ask and the answers that we hear in the workplace. So in terms of asking an employee if they've gotten the vaccine, that's okay. And asking for proof is okay. But resulting questions from somebody's illness or disability or genetic disorder, we want to refrain from having that information thrown back at us, because having that information can be a basis for making employment decisions. And it's scary, but it's very human that we want, once we know something, to move on it. So even though it's not malicious, it's still illegal to make decisions based on genetic information if we happen to find out. And somebody's family, by the way, like a family member. And this does pertain to COVID. So I'm not going to go through all of these right now. This is mainly a reference page, these 2 pages for you guys. But what I'm going to skip to is kind of the policies, like a testing policy, a mask policy, vaccination policy, and so forth. And I will go through to discuss what you can do legally and what your options are. So for testing, employers can ask employees who call in sick if symptoms are COVID related, and they can ask employees to stay home. What employers cannot do is ask employees to get a test based on that assumption, but upon return to work, if it is a potential COVID illness, employers can require a doctor's note certifying fitness for duty. And you may not see whether that employee had COVID or not, but that's not important. A doctor is going to certify whether or not that person is safe to come to work. So you don't always need to know. And I'm sure that sometimes as managers, you want to know, but you can't always know. So that's why the doctor's note is so important. You can require that. For a mask policy, state and local laws are primary. So I will give you an example. I've heard that in Washington, you guys still have a mask mandate, but in Arizona, our mask mandate expired with the executive order that our governor gave. And I think that was sometime last year, or it might've been this year. I actually think, hold on a second. I think the executive order lasted a year. So it expired in April of this year. And there's no law enforcement of masks. So businesses can make the decision based on their own judgment, whether or not to have a mask policy. But regarding masks, if you do have a mask policy, you have to apply it to everybody in terms of it has to be consistent. So if you decide that people who are vaccinated can take their masks off, I would highly encourage you guys to verify their vaccination status. And then if you don't care, then you don't care for everybody, okay? So it's either you care for everybody or you care for nobody. You just have to be consistent in your application, because if you're not, that's where there's a perception of discrimination. And that's where you get into legal problems. And it's not that you're discriminating against that specific person. It ends up being that you're discriminating against women, which is a protected class. You're discriminating against their race, because their race is a protected class. So you can kind of start to see the wheels of the law working. You just have to be very, very careful. So in terms of the mask policy and vaccine status, when you are asking employees for their vaccine, proof of vaccine, that's all you need. There is nothing else that you should have access to in terms of their health care, just a vaccine sheet. Or I know some people have it on their phones. That's all you need to know. No additional information. It's just going to put you in a more compromising position in the future if you know more information about this person's health. So concerning a vaccination policy, it's legal to ask about the vaccine status and to have proof of it, and that's it. If you decide to have a mandatory vaccine program or a vaccine policy, I highly encourage you to have an exemption process for disability-related exemption or religious exemption, because there's not, we are not all made the same, and there will be people who feel very strongly about this. Legally speaking, you're going to be in a less risky position if you have options for those employees who have a disability and cannot get the vaccine, or if you have an employee that has a religious exemption. And there is a process. I was able to find a process through SHRM. And then also, I believe the EEOC has a process for that. What ends up happening is that the employee says, I have a disability, I need an exemption. And then after the employee requests one, then it's in the ball's in your court as an employer to complete a reasonable exception. And if the reasonable exception cannot happen and it becomes an undue hardship for your business, that is when you can consider possibly moving that employee to a lateral position, something they're already similarly doing with title and job duties. Or if it's not going to work out, that's where you can go down that path of possible termination.
Morgan, you've got 1 minute.
Okay, and I'm almost done.
Perfect, perfect.
So for as a potential employee, this question or this topic, this last one really concerned me. For interview questions for potential employees for interviewing, it is well within your right as an employer to take temperatures of people coming into your place of business, but that is it. Anything else further than that is considered a medical examination, just for employees or potential employees. But the thing with potential employees is that they don't work for you yet. So there's a lot more, there's just stricter laws on how we handle that situation. So under the ADA, and let me go back really quick. So the ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Rehabilitation Act also qualifies under that. Prior to making a conditional offer to an applicant, hold on a second. Disability-related inquiries and medical exams are generally prohibited. So any questions about their COVID status and their vaccine status in the interview, this is pre-offer phase, is inappropriate. I would almost liken it to asking a woman if she's ever intends to get pregnant. It's really bad. Just don't do it. It's not worth it, at least in this phase. Now, you can require that all employees before they're hired have their vaccine, or you have an exemption policy or practice. But they are permitted between the time of the offer, when the applicant begins work, provided they are required, for everyone in the same job category.
All right.
So as long as you're doing it consistently for everybody in that job category, you can do that, but not until after you provide a job, or after you provide an offer can you require that, because then you're getting into that person is going to seriously potentially work at your place of business.
No, this is great. Thank you.
And for some reason, my last page is not working, but hold on a second. Oh, there we go. So any questions?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Can we keep a list if somebody comes into an open house, for example? This is not something where we're hiring, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you do know about keeping lists of people who come to your place of business or to an open house.
You know what? I know tons of realtors that do that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that there's a problem with that because they use it as a way to contact people to find out if they're still interested or.
Well, and we oftentimes will keep a list, but I was curious if we kept a list for that reason for COVID, if that was something.
As long as you're not discriminating against somebody
Okay.
and you're doing it consistently, like this is really the key.
Okay.
And there's a business necessity. That was, okay, so I'm going to go back quickly.
Well, and we're going to have to move on because
okay. Yes.
we finished at 9 o'clock. So this is wonderful. I'm recording it, and I think now I'll go ahead and, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and stop recording.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.